That one's mine. Tiny, tiny saint of God. So last year, for our parish anniversary, I invited people to share memories of Christ Church. Do you remember that? So we could tell the stories of our saints, the long history. And several people wrote in beautiful memories, and others volunteered to read those memories. And many people wrote to tell me afterward how much they appreciated that service. So this year, I opened the same invitation, and 0 people responded. Not even one person. So at first, I was a little puzzled, and I was disappointed. But as I was wandering around, praying about it and muttering about it, I got the distinct impression that it was actually a holy opening, a challenge, or a summons. Because here's an interesting thing. So whenever we hold these services, we explicitly treasure and hold dearly our memories, our past, and our unique history. But we also realize that we are poised, like the center point of a seesaw, between the first 115 years of our history and the second 115 years of our history. And we are writing the history as we go right now. And I remember so clearly 2 years ago on our All Saints celebration, when Aaron and I brought Moses for the first time to Christ Church, and Pete Strymer was preaching, he said, Christ Church's glory days are ahead of us, not behind us. So today, for our 115th birthday and the 4th anniversary of my installation as rector, I'd like to offer you some memories from the future. And these are some fantasies. They are some possible ways for us to imagine how our place impacts lives in ways we never thought of, in ways we don't know. The people here, the church itself, tendril out in the world like tree roots. We do what we do here so that that can happen. So there's 4 little vignettes. This is a sermon, I just want to give you a heads up, that Aaron and I co-wrote. We dreamed this together, thinking about the future of Christ Church. So it's actually a joint sermon. Here we go. 2025. A young woman is settling into her first dorm room at UC Berkeley. She spreads out her worn comforter, puts her thrifted shirts and pants in the drawers, and then finally sets out on the desk her most prized possession, the photograph of her summiting Mount Rainier, Tahoma, the summer before. When her parents, both programmers, moved to Seattle in the tech boom in the mid-aughts, right before they had her, they didn't know quite where they'd landed. Both of them had grown up and lived their whole lives in Chicago and its suburbs, and the onslaught of green trees and giant mountains and water was new to them. They weren't particularly religious. One was raised Catholic, the other Baptist, but none of it had felt compelling or interesting to them in quite some time. But when they moved to Seattle and had a baby right away, they thought, we should probably figure out how people live around here. Their coworkers were always talking about the hike they went on, or their kayaking trip, or paddle boarding, which was a word that had never occurred to them. And so they did what they do, and they Googled. And they found this book called Best Hikes with Kids, Western Washington and the Cascades, by someone named Joan Burton, who seemed to be pretty knowledgeable about hiking, at least according to Google. So every Sunday, they'd crack the book, and they'd set out to find a new place to run around. First with baby Isa strapped to their front, and then in a backpack, and then soon with her very own tiny Keens trudging along happily beside them. And soon, their little daughter started asking them where they were going this weekend, and their vacations began to center around where they could climb or hike. And as Isa got to middle school, she went through what most teenage girls go through. And as one of the only black girls in her school, she bore the brunt of teasing and jokes, endless questions about her hair or her weight. Both her teachers and her classmates would assume that she was on scholarship. But none of that bothered her as much as it could have, because she had something else. She had a knowledge deep in her body of what it felt like to talk to the trail, to climb over slippery rocks, to see a summit shimmering just above her, how it felt to have her muscles stretch and her skin sweat and shine. In the woods and in the mountains, she was exactly the right size, bigger than the picas and smaller than the cedars. She knew what it meant to trust herself, to know when to eat, when to rest. And now, as she gets ready to start exploring her classes and to conquer the new topography of Central California, she's poised and she feels ready. There's no telling how far she could go from here, but for right now, she is strong and happy, and it is enough. The trees taught her. The mountain taught her. The water taught her. She is alive, and she is enough. And it's all because of that one book. If you don't know Joan Burton, she is an author and a devoted activist and a hiking enthusiast. She's in the back with a black sweater and red shirt. She came up to give the announcement about the conversation on homelessness, and through her work, thousands of families have discovered a deep love and appreciation for our part of the world. It's All Saints Sunday. The parish is getting ready for its 125th birthday, and it is done up. Ribbons swoop through the ceiling from beam to beam. A gaggle of tiny children is getting ready to sing the offertory anthem, and the room is packed. Lots of people are setting up the silver downstairs, and the champagne is cooling in the fridge. We have a grand service and a big happy party. After the party, several volunteers carefully put aside the best and most elegant of the leftovers because they know what is coming. The chairs and tables stay out, and the sweet tablecloths stay on. At about 1:30 p.m., we open the front doors to the church, and people start wandering in. They're wearing chains and boots. A few have face tattoos. They're ragging each other a little, shoving each other and joking while settling into the pews. I search the crowd for the face I'm looking for and finally find her. She's known on the Ave as Little Bird, and she carries a cardboard box into the sacristy. "This is him?" I ask, already knowing the answer. This is him. I put the box of ashes under the white cloth and bring it out to the center aisle on the little table the Altar Guild has put out for just this reason. I put back on my cassock and surplice, kiss my stole, and come out into the sanctuary and ready myself to help the street survivors of the Ave say goodbye to their friend. This is the 8th death this year. We keep adding names to our memorials: Twilight, Raven, Darwin, Steve-O, Louie, Bam, Christina, and now JJ. Someone's printed out a picture of JJ, a good one from when he was last released from jail and had some weight on him. I slide it into a frame and place this near the box. We all sit in relative quiet for a few minutes. The priest, the Ave kids, and 30 campus ministry students who have been showing up every time in quiet solidarity for every street funeral we host. Because it makes a difference when the church looks a bit fuller. Folks from the Ave see that their loved ones are remembered and sense that they might be remembered as well. 2049. Sarah is behind on her rent. She's only been living in Lancaster, Pennsylvania for a few months. She followed her boyfriend there, hearing that the minimum wage was a little higher here, hoping she'd have a better shot in the city than in her little town. She's walked to the grocery store near her apartment, almost certain about what she's going to do. She's left her little fussy 5-month-old Derek with her next door neighbor. She tries to look normal as she browses the apples and grapes she can't afford and makes her way to the aisle full of baby toys and formula. After the quickest of scans to see if there's an obvious camera, she shoves the medium-sized can of formula under her sweatshirt and tries to look calm, even though she can feel the sweat start to form on her upper lip. As she walks briskly out the door, though, the lights go off and the sirens go off. The security guard rushes her, throws her down, holds her head against the floor, grabs the formula, and barks for backup. After she's booked, she gets a few minutes with the public defender who's assigned to her case. Unlike everyone else in the jail, he walks in slowly and looks at her like she's a real person. He's a little frazzled around the edges. Spare threads wave around his collar. His suit jacket is clearly from the discount store. But his eyes are deep brown, warm and sweet, and his presence calms her. They talk about what happened. They talk about what will happen next. When he pulls out his phone to figure out the next day he can meet with her, Sarah notices that his lock screen is a picture of him next to a handsome, tall man with big ears and a suit and 2 tiny, giggling toddlers in white dresses. "Is that your family?" she asks. "It is." "They look nice." "Yeah, that was Easter. We just got the girls baptized." Oh, are you Catholic? No, we're Episcopalian. I'm sorry, you're what? It's kind of like Catholic. It's kind of hard to explain. I just came back to it too, having the kids. I was baptized when I was little, just a baby in Seattle. But when you're a teenager, you just kind of want to go your own way. I get that. But something about the girls, I just wanted something for them. I wanted them to know that they had a community and that they were really loved, Yeah. That's something I know. They look at each other for a second, joined in the universal heartbeat of wanting everything for their children. For their children to know they are loved beyond measure. I have to head out now. I'll see you next week. You're not alone, Sarah. Thanks, Mr. Alfeo. Call me Artie. If you don't know Artie Alfeo, he was baptized here last May. He has a gorgeous little Clark Kent chin. He's wearing a checkered shirt today. You'll probably see him downstairs. You can say hi to him. Last one. 2060. In Vancouver, BC, on a rare sunny fall Friday, a grandmother walks her young grandson down a park path under clear skies. He dawdles, he's 4. There are geese and squirrels to harass. She has to tug on his jacket and hurry him along. But we go to mosque all the time, he complains. Not true, and you know it, she replies. We pray at home most of the time. But yes, on Fridays we go. It is important to go. It's boring. I don't know why it's important. It's too hard to stay still. It will be easier to sit still when you get older, she tells him. And then you'll go more. This is practice. And it's important because there have been times we couldn't go, times it wasn't safe for us to go. It's a blessing for us to live in a place where we can pray outside of our homes without fear. Prayer is boring. I don't know why something so boring would ever be unsafe. You know, she says, I've told you. And I'll tell you again. When I was young and living in America, we had to hide. There were many people who wanted to hurt us for being Muslims. That's why we had to run away. That's why we live here now. Where did you hide? He asks, already knowing the story. In a church in Seattle.